On Saturday evening, the footballing world was met with news that was extremely disappointing. Disappointing, yet based on how things have been going lately, not surprising. For the first time since 1978, the holder of the Ballon d'Or will not be competing in a FIFA World Cup. This was, of course, confirmed after news broke that Karim Benzema had sustained a thigh injury in training after landing in Qatar ahead of France's opener. Again, disappointing. However, the reason this is not surprising is that France, as well as a lot of their competition, have experienced this already. Big player after big player dropping down, then dropping out. The injury crisis of Qatar. Now, heartbreaking injuries have always been a part of World Cups. Players giving their all for selection only to be tragically sidelined before it begins or in crucial stages of the tournament itself. Today, I wanted to quickly talk about what's going on this time around, specifically in the context of France, and how it could affect the game beyond the big tournament for everybody. With that being said, what's going on? Yo, what's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing well. I'm Tinashe and welcome back to Football Iconic. Feel free to subscribe, the button's right there. It seems as though every day a new player is dropping out of the World Cup before their team even gets to take to the pitch. And quite frankly, it's a lot to keep up with. But if you do need a way to keep up with it, I would suggest considering taking a look at the sponsor of this video. The World Cup is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. Time to say hello once more to fan parks, dreadful predictions, and worst of all, dudes asking you what the score is when you can see that they are literally holding a smartphone in their hands. It's frustrating, trust me, I know. I've lived through this. But instead of getting upset, why not tell them to go ahead and download the sponsor of today's video? OneFootball. Why, you ask? Because OneFootball is your go-to news app for all things news, transfers, scores, highlights, and much, much more. All you need to do is go into the app, select a team, player, or group of players, and you can get all the stats that you could ever need. And all that comes at the low, low price of nothing at all. If all that sounds good to you, why not go ahead and click the link in the description to download OneFootball today for free. Thanks so much again to OneFootball for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. Since this World Cup was announced, controversy surrounding the selection of Qatar as hosts have been rife. Corruption, prosecution of LGBTQ+ individuals, modern-day slavery, human rights violations, misogyny, sports washing, every ism under the sun, the fact that Qatar has never actually qualified for a World Cup in its history under true merit, and much, much more. And while I'm not going to go into the details surrounding the politics of this entire mess, I do want to take a second to briefly laser in on the state of the players going into this tournament, as well as what they're going to be subjected to during it and maybe even after it. If you aren't aware of them and you are interested in the many controversies around the cup, I'd recommend my fellow content creator Maxwell's many videos on the topic, specifically this one on screen, linked in the description. It's really good. Qatar is hot and humid. We all know this. This has been known for a very, very long time. In fact, the World Cup was awarded to Qatar in the very same year that the country recorded its hottest ever day, 50.4 degrees Celsius. With that in mind, the tournament was then moved to the wintertime in November-December instead of June-July, as is typically customary for World Cups, in order to avoid the scorching summer sun. However, the average annual temperature in Qatar is still about 30 degrees Celsius, and as is the case, that is the literal forecasted average temperature in the country during the week that I'm recording this video. And remember, it's winter. The stadiums may be air-conditioned with state-of-the-art technology, but the entire country of Qatar likely is not. The ramifications that this may have on not only the players but also the fans is still yet to be seen in full effect. You know, who knows? Maybe it's actually not going to be as big of a deal as many are making it out to be. So I prefer to just hang back and take a look at what's going on, and then we can report on it at a later stage. The only reason I mention this is that for the purposes of this video, I want us to laser in on the scheduling of the tournament. The final game in the European leagues before players joined up with their countrymen for the World Cup was held on the 13th of November. The first match of the 2022 World Cup took place on Sunday, the 20th of November. 7 days. 7 days to prepare for a grueling set of matches on the biggest stage of them all in the most high-pressured environment that world football has to offer. In 2018, the window between the end of the regular season and the start of the World Cup was the same as it had been for many of the years prior to that edition, about 31 days. Knowing that that window had been drastically shortened, in the lead up to this World Cup, we saw a lot of players going at half speed, sometimes not even playing at all, in order to avoid getting injured or antagonizing existing minor knocks. However, many players have been unable to avoid disappointment this time around, and because of the small prep time, any knock whatsoever, minor or major, could spell the end of someone's tournament. And perhaps no country has been as affected by injuries to key figures as France. Les Bleus are in a less than ideal situation. Injuries have been hitting them left, right and center throughout the entire year. Whether these can be attributed to fixture congestion, exertion overloads, freak accidents, or just dumb luck is something we can debate on a case-by-case basis. However, the facts remain. This French side have had some rotten luck. Paul Pogba, N'Golo Kante, Mike Maignan, Christopher Nkunku, Presnel Kimpembe, Karim Benzema. In addition to the players that have been 100% ruled to be out, there are also a whole host of French players that are either carrying knocks or just coming back from injury. Rafa Varane, Eduardo Camavinga, if recent reports are to be true, Jules Kounde, Lucas Hernandez, it's not looking good. And funnily enough, if this World Cup were held in the normal time slots, almost none of these players would have been injured. Most of these injuries were sustained during preseason or the current league campaign. I know that is a bit of a hypothetical, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Whether these injuries have anything to do with the fact that the footballing schedule is completely scuffed this year, or maybe it's just all bad luck, is up for debate. I'm just here to provide some context. So on to France's squad. As we all know, this is a very gifted crop of players, and even barring injuries, they are a footballing force. But are the exclusions as damning for the French national team as they appear to be? The defense is undoubtedly France's strongest point in this edition. With options everywhere, they aren't lacking in star power. Didier Deschamps has been setting his team up in a 3-4-1-2 in recent games, so I see no reason for this to change. Of course, this can turn into a 5 at the back if required. In defense, this is how I see them lining up. The midfield is where people have been most critical of this team in the lead up to the event. I mentioned earlier on that Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante were missing, and as we all know, these two have been absolutely crucial to the French national team in the years gone by. Their absences could end up being catastrophic. But if we're looking at the double pivot in the midfield, the Madrid pairing of Eduardo Camavinga and Aurélien Tchouameni are as good a quote-unquote backup as any. Strength, running, defensive and attacking output is not lacking in the slightest. Assuming they both stay fit, I think the French will be in good hands. And to take this even further, one of the many reasons that people attribute to defending champions in their defending campaigns and why they perform so poorly is that they tend to bring the same team and tactics that won them the championship 4 years prior without giving a lot of consideration to how the game has moved on since their heroic win. With the midfield literally being the heart of any team, perhaps the absence of the old guard isn't as bad as some are making it out to be. I'm obviously not dogging on those that are missing out. If they were fit, they should be included in a heartbeat, but I hope you get what I mean. All the same, in attack, there is very little that has changed in 4 years. Both of the new, exciting additions to the squad in Benzema and Nkunku will be watching from the sidelines, meaning that Griezmann, Mbappe and Giroud will more than likely make up the preferred front three. All exceptional players that deliver whenever they lace up for France, so I see no reason to believe that they'll buck the trend here. At the end of the day, I still think France are a very dangerous team despite the setbacks and increased workloads, although I will say that there is probably something to be said about the psychological impact of losing key players, and so many of them at that, so that can't really be something that's skipped over. I'm pretty sure it's deeply embedded in the mind of a lot of these French players. All in all, I'm still positive that they can do well. Cautiously positive though. I had Germany as my favorites in the last World Cup, and we all know how that turned out. And with all that being said, it's important to remember that France are not the only ones that are suffering from current conditions. Sadio Mane, for example, played in about 19 highly competitive, highly physically exhausting games in 10 weeks in the lead up to this tournament before receiving a soul-crushing injury mere days before it. And Mane is nowhere near the only player that's had such a rigorous schedule. Remember that for many of these players that are going into this World Cup that also play in any of the top traditional leagues, they're likely highly fatigued and also going into this World Cup without a lot of rest. Will we see more injuries than usual in this tournament? Several signs point towards that being the case, but let's wait and see. What's obvious to me is that this tournament can't indicate anything good when it comes to the post-World Cup fallout. Some of the leagues are somewhat lenient in how they're going about it. However, seeing as the Premier League reconvenes only 1 week after the end of the tournament, assuming that these guys don't pull up during the competition, I would be shocked if we don't see players dropping like flies once they return to England. And there we have it. Let me know what you guys think about the playing conditions that these players are being subjected to, as well as France and how they're going to handle it. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll be making videos about all my observations of this tournament as the days go by. And yeah, feel free to follow the socials. That's all from me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.